Last October, I attended the Celebrate Your Life event in Scottsdale, Arizona, but I only signed up for one workshop. It was the music and mediumship workshop because, well, I love working as a medium, but I also have a very profound love of music. And I thought, well, that would be super cool to learn how to combine them both in ways I probably hadn't even thought of. And I ended up learning way, way more than I even thought possible. We started the day with some various meditations, and one of them was a beautiful and transformative chakra meditation. And afterwards, we were given a break. And this is when I don't know what happened. I got out of my comfort zone and I just decided to approach the co leader of the class who was actually composing music live for the event and for all of our meditations. I walked right up to him and I told him how much I was enjoying the class. And then I don't know what took over me, but I got brave enough to ask him if he would like to be a guest on my podcast. And he was so kind and said yes without any hesitation. It was at that point that I think I made some silly joke about being embarrassed about asking him so abruptly. And he replied, thankfully, with, well, didn't we just open up your throat chakra through the meditation? And so that kind of lightened the mood, made me feel a little bit better. And here we are today, finally making it happen. I am so excited to be having the opportunity to interview Mr. Barry Goldstein. Barry Goldstein's musical experience spans many styles and genres, from co producing the Grammy Award winning track 69 Freedom Special with Les Paul for Best Rock Instrumental in 2005 to providing ambient music for Shirley MacLaine. In addition, he has composed and produced music for television, film, major record labels, and top 10 recording artists. Barry's music is being used in hospitals, hospices, cancer centers, and medical practices. In addition, Barry has worked with the father of biohacking, Dave Asprey, and reached the Billboard Top 10 New Age albums with New York Times bestselling authors Dr. Joe Dispenza, Dr. Daniel Amen, Neil Donald Walsh, and Anita Morjani. His bestselling book, The Secret Language of the Heart, has become a go-to manual for utilizing music beyond art and entertainment. It provides over 50 groundbreaking studies that assist the reader in using music to improve their health and quality of life.
Spirit. Does it stay? Does it go?
The fact is, spirit does survive death. Our loved ones are all around us. Love survives. Spirit survives. All is not lost.
Welcome to the All Is Not Lost podcast. Here's your host, psychic and evidential medium, Rianne Maldonado.
It?
I
Not
can
quite.
kind of see it. Yeah. I
Oh,
think Riverside kind of cuts off full picture until it's like
till it's
until you're
done.
actually seeing it. Yeah, yeah.
Well, there we go.
Awesome.
So
You're
oh,
plugging
go,
me,
no,
so
go
I
ahead.
don't have to.
Oh yeah, totally. And yeah, I did do the intro like we talked about, like I mentioned earlier. But okay, Barry, I'm just gonna tell you, I'm a total overachiever and a little bit of a weirdo. I basically did like a book report on your entire book, and I have 18 pages of notes in front of me. So
Oh my God.
just
Are
cut
you
me
gonna
off at
quiz me?
no, well, maybe, but you just cut me off at any point. But I did tell a little story in the intro. And I don't expect you to remember this because you meet a million people, I'm sure. But when I approached you at the workshop in Scottsdale,
Yeah.
I don't know what gave me the courage, or at the time I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to go talk to him. I'm going to invite him on my show. And then afterwards, I think I said something to you about being embarrassed. And you're like, well, we did just open up your throat chakra. And I was like,
Oh, yeah, I
oh
do
my God,
remember
I guess we did. So
that.
I thank you so, so much for joining me today. Really, really excited to talk to you. And what's interesting is I was already excited based on just that first half of the workshop that I couldn't wait to talk to you. And now that I've listened to a lot more of your music and read your book, I'm like, oh my God, super excited.
Well,
Um,
awesome.
yeah, I wanted first to ask you if you wanted to chat a little bit about the mental illness event you went to in Hollywood the other day.
Yeah, absolutely. Are we recording it? You're just in
We are.
record?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
I should have
awesome.
warned you. I went ahead and clicked it while you were getting ready so we didn't have to wait for the countdown.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, um, I had just got back from, Beverly Hills, and there was an event called Ending Mental Illness, with Dr. Daniel Amen that was a fundraiser, and it was, an amazing event. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with Daniel Amen's work or not.
Just a little bit after listening to a podcast I think that he was on recently.
Yeah, well, Daniel's a pioneer in his field. He's looked at over 200,000 brain scans.
Oh,
And so
that's
he's a
right.
pioneer in that world. And at the same time, he's also been controversial in his approach because the standard of care is not looking at the brain per se or looking. He does what are called SPECT scans, where they're actually looking at the physical brain. And the whole premise behind his work is that when we injure any other part of our body, if you injure your hand, you take an x-ray to see, if it's broken or if it's fractured. If you're experiencing pressure in your chest, you might take, you know, a, a scan to see if there are any heart problems. But the brain is the only organ that we don't physically look at when there are symptoms of mental illness and other things. He calls them cluster diagnoses, where we're just looking for specific symptoms and then we're prescribing for them. And he's not
Mm.
against prescription medicine. It's the fact that we're basically not getting enough information from his point of view to accurately diagnose and to see what's wrong with the brain. And he feels very strongly that if you fix the brain, then you work with the brain, the physical brain, then a lot of the symptoms of mental illness can be very treatable.
Wow.
So yeah. So
That's That's amazing to think about. I had never thought about it that way, that we do look at other parts of the body when they're injured, but yeah, mental illness, you just sit down and chit chat with somebody and they write you a prescription or, give you some exercises to do. But I hadn't really thought about actually looking at the structure. So
yeah.
that's very
So
fascinating.
yeah, and it gives us so much more information in terms of treatment plans and everything else. So I was and have been blessed and privileged to work with Daniel as well, bringing more awareness to how music can be used in terms of battling some of the things that come with mental illness, anxiety and stress, and a lot of times sleeping challenges. And just as there are nutraceuticals and pharmaceuticals, my approach is that there can also be acoustaceuticals, which are geared towards looking at and treating some of the symptoms utilizing music, sound, and vibration. So Daniel and I have put out four programs together. A lot of them accompany his books. One of them was part of a PBS special that was the number one special called Bright Minds.
Oh,
And yeah, so Daniel has been really helpful and an advocate for bringing music to the forefront of how it can be used as medicine.
That actually really hits home for me because, well, there's mental illness in my family throughout a little bit, but, anxiety, depression, but I have really bad anxiety. And I'm always looking for new ways to manage it. And I was there for a mediumship conference. I mean, it's all about meditations and this and that. And I have tried all of the things that I'm aware of at this point. Um, with not a lot of luck. But specifically, I have an 8-year-old daughter who is severely, her anxiety is just off the charts. And I had never thought until meeting you at the workshop about using music and in different things. And I came home that night and I taught her the Kirtan Kriya.
Hmm. Hmm.
And last night from my bedroom, I could hear her in her room singing Sata
Oh,
Nama.
wow, that's
And I'm
awesome.
like, oh my gosh, giving her some tools to
Yeah.
help because I'm not at the point where I want to medicate my child. She's 8. I would really like to do other things. And so
Well, that's
listening to,
great,
yeah,
and just that
listening
you're
to what you're
open
saying.
to that because, we're hitting that point where there's second and third generations of pres- people being prescribed medications for
Mhm.
a lot of these things, and in many cases they work and they're helpful, but I think at the same time, depending on the person, individualized medicine is the best medicine that we can possibly use because we're looking at each case. And it doesn't hurt to have additional tools as well that can be used that are low cost and non-invasive and a safe place to start, especially with kids, because we're not taught most of these things in school. Um, in terms of how do we get out of anxiety? So the
Right.
tools are what we're talking about. So when we can teach kids how to utilize their breath and how to
Mhm.
utilize their voice, and the Satanama uses mudras as well,
Mhm.
which are, touching the fingers as you're doing each of those phrases, Satanama. And what's great is that it's not just like new age jargon,
Right.
or something esoteric anymore because we're studying all of these things. And there's the Alzheimer's organization did a very, very deep in depth study and research on the Kirtan Kriya and found that doing it for 12 minutes a day can assist in cognition, in memory recall, in anxiety, in sleeping challenges. They found that it even could lengthen telomeres, which are a measurement of how we're aging. So that's
Mhm.
the exciting part, is that we've known we've known about all of this for thousands of years in terms of using chanting and sound. But now that we're studying it, science becomes a language that translates it more to the masses. And that's really what my vision has been about. Most people have had random experiences using music in powerful ways. But how can we bring awareness that music can also be used beyond art and entertainment and can be used as a vehicle for transformation and healing? So when you give your daughter a tool like that and you see that she's using it,
Yes.
and that she is empowering herself to use it as a tool to work with anxiety, you're teaching her something outside of the norm. Maybe she'll have all her friends over and they'll have a Satana Ma party,
I would
instead of a
love
pajama
that.
party, a Satana Ma party.
Are you I know a lot of the work you're doing, um, but since I mean, I don't mean to get off on this kind of tangent, but since we're talking about children in schools, I'm always hungry to try to bring something more. I hate to say the word spiritual. I don't know what the word would be, but some of these out of the box things to the schools because I have 4 children in school right now. One is out, but 2 in elementary, 2 in middle school. And there's so much struggle in middle school. There's so much with bullies and test anxiety and all the normal stuff and the not normal stuff. That do you ever bring your programs into schools or have they started being used there at this point?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the times I find out after they're being used. So people like yourself and teachers who have heard me speak in a lecture or have attended some of my classes and courses, I get emails months later saying, I've been using your music in Australia,
Mm.
to help children, kind of relax and release stress. Like during the day, they'll play the music, or they'll
Wow.
do a process. Like I have a process called the Heartsong Breathing Process.
I
That's
love that,
very
by the
simple
way.
but powerful. Thank you. Yeah, and you're just placing your hands on your heart and you're breathing. It's a 3 breath process. Actually, we can do it together if you want.
Yes, yes,
We'll
and I
teach
would
people
love
watching.
that's teach people for sure because I was excited to talk about that, hoping you would. Not only for my anxiety, I find that that's been helpful, but also as a medium, before I'm going to connect with spirit, it really helps me feel centered and grounded and kind of visualize building that bridge from the heart to the other side. So, yes, please lead us.
Exactly. And what's great about this, it's simple but powerful. You could do it anywhere. You don't need to go out and buy any tools to do it. And I created it because initially, when I was living in New York City, my recording studio was about 15 blocks from where I live. And I would meditate and center myself in the morning, but walking those 15 blocks in New York is like another whole world. There's all smells and ambulances and you know um you know homeless people, and it's just really can move you out of center and focus. So I wanted to figure out a way to reconnect with my breath, but also at the same time bring in the energy of being grounded but still connected. So it's similar to the energy of a tree. If you think of a tree has its roots that are grounded, but at the same time it has its branches and leaves that are kind of flourishing and moving in the wind and are still connected to the sky and the air. So it's connected to the earth, and it's also has a connection to the sky. And we're really the same. So a lot of times people think of it as a sacrifice to have to ground, because they
Mm.
want to travel and be in the ethers and journey and all that. But
Yeah.
you can actually do both. So this is a 3 breath process. On the first breath, you bring in through the bottom of your feet and all the way up to your heart and release it. The second breath, you bring in from the top of your head into your heart and releasing it. And then a breath through the heart, in through the heart and out through the heart. And the breath from the bottom of your feet connects you to the earth, to Gaia, to being supported, to being nurtured. The breath from above connects you to an unlimited field of all potentials, to the heavens energy. And the heart integrates those two. So it's actually integrating masculine and feminine energy. So let's do it together. First, we bring in a breath through the bottom of our feet all the way up to our heart, and a big sigh out. And then a breath in through the top of our head, bringing it to our heart, and then a breath out. And then a breath in through the heart, and a breath out through the heart. And that audible sigh, I call that a soul sound. So it's like our soul is telling us everything's going to be okay. So let's do one more round, bringing that breath in through the bottom of our feet, connecting through our lower body all the way up to our heart, feeling grounded and nurtured, and then releasing that breath. Then connecting to the heavens, bringing the breath in through the top of our head, through our upper body, to the heart, and releasing it. And then a breath in through the heart and a breath out through the heart. Good. And you can just move your hands around, your feet, your
Mm.
shoulders. And so when we teach children this, they kind of know how to do this by second nature already. connecting with their hearts and going inward. Us as adults, most of us close off our hearts as we move more into um, the world as adults. We tend to protect ourselves or want to protect ourselves. So, but while they're young, the hearts are still open to explore. And these sounds that they're connecting to, your heartbeat, your breath, and your sigh, I call that your inner symphony. So when you're taught that at a young age, that you could be thankful for your breath and your heartbeat and your sigh out, that no matter what's going on in your life, if you're experiencing challenges, that we're blessed to still be alive, to have our life force moving through us. And it's great to do in the morning before you start your day, or, when you have challenging situations that come in, then you're have a tool to deal with them before it snowballs into like being one of those days that's just like that you can stop that energy from taking over your day. Know that you have control of it, that you have your own vibration, and that's what we connect to in our heart. Is we all have a heartbeat, we all have a breath, but each one of us are unique in that no one has the same heartbeat or breath that you do. So you get to tap into that uniqueness of who you are and come back home to your own energy when you have challenging situations. And, just have a moment to integrate and saying, it's like when we're traveling and you come home to your own bed, something about that. You're just like, oh, wow, it feels great to be home. It's that same essence when you come back home, utilizing your breath and feeling your heart's energy. So just a powerful tool to use at any age.
All right, we're back. Thank you so much, Barry. So I like that you told the story about your studio in New York and how you got yourself all centered and walking to work. All these things come at you. And I read that in your book. Um, but that's how easily things can go awry. And if we don't
Mhm.
have tools to help bring us back, it does just snowball into potentially the worst day. And then it seems like everything bad goes wrong after that. And sometimes it's hard to bring yourself back from that if you don't know how.
That's right. Yeah, and it's all about tools, that a lot of these tools, these ancient tools that have been used for thousands of years, meeting them with modern tools as well, and the chakras and energy centers have been studied and worked with for, again, thousands of years. But now we're just getting to a point in our culture where they're becoming more acceptable to even talk about them. Because 20 or 30 years ago, when you mentioned the word chakra or energy center, people would look at you like you had three heads.
Right.
Shirley MacLaine, when she wrote Out on a Limb, it was so out on a limb, especially in that time period where she literally, was, I mean, the butt of so many just jokes. And this is someone who had an unbelievable career. And she toughed it out. And a lot of the things that she talked about in her books are now things that everyone's talking about. Oh, but did you balance your chakras? Oh, did you meditate today? Right.
Yeah.
So it's great that it's becoming more acceptable, and sound and music are, I think, um, some of the most powerful ways for us to get to these states where we're more balanced and harmonious, um, quickly and powerfully. And so music, and Edgar Casey talked about that and said,
Mhm.
music is going to be the medicine of the future. And again, someone who was years, he was talking about all of these things in the 40s, so we're learning that science catches up to spirituality a lot of times. But people need to understand, a lot of times, that science becomes a language to translate some of these more esoteric theories that people hear about. But when we can apply science to them, like we talked about through chanting, even there's studies now that show that chanting Om can create what's called limbic deactivation. So that's when your limbic area, which is normally, it's associated with peacefulness. So when it's deactivated, we experience a sense of inner peace. And chanting Om have studied, and through fMRI studies, we were able to see that that actual sound of Om lights up areas of the brain that create that activation, but chanting other syllables like S did absolutely nothing. So when we could bring that science forward, and in my work, it's very powerful because doctors want to know. So when I can give doctors that information and then ask them to stand up and chant with me, that's a great thing to see 200 doctors standing up and chanting Om Shalom Home, which is a chant that I
My
created.
favorite, by the way. I
Oh,
listen
thank
to
you.
that every day.
Yeah, and again, it's connecting those are seed syllables that weave through many cultures. So that Om
Mhm.
is in Sanskrit, but Shalom means inner peace. And when we say home is in the heart, the Bible references many times about coming home to your heart to find divinity.
Oh, it makes me want to
So,
cry.
so it's connecting again. These are ancient, right? The sound of Om and Shalom and home. But when we apply something modern together to bring in that connectedness that we all experience in these different cultures, as you saw, like in Celebrate Your Life, where there was a conference with hundreds of people, when we step into that space together and chant, and there's a movement around it with our hands and how we're standing, you can feel the energy of the room move into more cohesive and coherent states. So when we are able to connect with our own inner peace, which the studies show, then that ripples out. And, that's really in the optimist's glass, as mine is, how we change the world by creating that vibration in ourselves first, bringing it into culture and community. And when we can experience inner peace and have that anchor to it, then we understand what peace is. But if you don't have an experience that's connected to things, it's hard to bring that vibration in. And again, music, sound, vibration gives us that experience, allows us to escape the prison of our inner thoughts, which a
Mhm.
lot of us are prisoners to, and step into something that is much more expansive. So,
Wow, so much there. I I love the idea, you talking about science catching up to spirituality, because the work that I do, I'm a Reiki master, I'm a medium, like talking to dead people over here. People think I'm a quack, just for these things. There's still um a stigma, even to, like, when you said talking about the chakras. Sometimes I'm in a group of people and I mention something like that, and it's like their eyes glaze over. They don't even know what to do with that information, or they stop thinking that I'm somebody worth listening to because I'm talking about that weird stuff. So, um I didn't read it all, but I did see the study on Alzheimer's with the Kirtan Kriya. And I thought, oh my gosh, if I could compile my own little resource list of some of these scientific studies that support some of the things that I do, not to be like, oh, I'm right, see, here, but more to help people understand that there
mhm.
is something to this that's beneficial for everybody. And I agree with you too. How can we go out into the world and tell people to do something or feel something if we don't have it here in ourselves first. And that
Right.
inner peace
Absolutely.
is important. And that's why when I read about the heart breath process, I thought, oh my gosh, this is the perfect thing for me to do before connecting with spirit,
Hmm.
to bring me into a place where I'm at my best, not coming in, from a busy day, traffic on the road, get to the reading and just jump right into it. No, I need to be grounded, but connected, as you said, to both, and that you can be in both places.
Right.
I
And
love that.
if you feel that your clients or the people that you're working with, it could be helpful for them as well, because
Yes.
they're nervous as well
Mhm.
coming into the space and connecting with their loved ones. And if you can get them into the same channel as you are, where you're connected, and set an intention for the session with them, it becomes more than a reading. It becomes something that's sacred for them.
That's true, like an
And
experience we share together. I didn't think about doing it with my client. I love that.
yeah, it creates a bonding there. And even having them set an intention for whatever it is in the session that they'd like to achieve. So again, it becomes something that's special for them, and they're connecting with your heart. They're calming down because basically, um your connection, and when you're connecting to that, you're probably in a much slower brainwave state, and that's probably
Mhm.
why you hear what you hear.
Yeah.
You're right. You can't be in busy mind.
Mm-mm.
Can't be like in high beta. You have to be in alpha, theta, and in that area to create that conversation. So, preparing yourself for that and getting them into that state too, all it can do is notch it up a level of what's going on in the room, because they're going to be more receptive and not as much in their head as well.
I cannot wait to try this. I just decided to do um, a group reading event at a local business coming up in February. And I mentioned to the host, I said, okay, but before I open up for the reading, we'll do some sort of visualization and intention setting. Now I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to have us do that process together. I'm excited.
Awesome. Yeah, and it's so
Yeah.
easily explainable. We all have a heartbeat, we all have a breath. Coming into the room to unify that in common cause, for whatever it is. And a lot of these, teachings, as I said, it gears towards as above, so below, which is so common and powerful in indigenous cultures. So when you're connecting
Mm,
to the earth, you're connecting to the sky. There's a unification that's going on there.
that's beautiful. Yes. Um, going back to scientific studies, I loved when you when you wrote in your book that there was a study done on listening to a metronome at 66 beats per minute
Hmm.
was better at helping with anxiety than sitting in silence. And I think you saved my life on that day, because I'm always the one who's like, I can't meditate. Something's wrong with me. I'm supposed to be a master meditator. And the silence drives me nuts. My monkey mind just goes crazy. So one night I was in that mode, and nothing I did could calm me down. And I was reading that and I thought, oh my gosh, I downloaded a metronome app and I set
Okay.
it, and I just put on my earbuds and I listened, and it worked. It totally works.
Yeah. And, when we take that a step further and then we apply that into music, which is basically, we're taking that research and then saying, okay, well, how can this be implemented? That really was the basis of my whole musical life changing, because I don't know if you knew this, you probably did if you read my book, but
Yeah.
I was a pop producer, and I started taking these journeys because I was so burnt out on the business of music. And I did the research to find that our heart at a relaxed state is usually between 60 and 70 beats per minute. And so, well, what would happen if I set my metronome for 60 beats per minute and just let the music come through me would that work in reconnecting me to my heart and the love that I had for music as opposed to, music being a job. So that was how my journey started in creating much more ambient music. And for peace, I was my own experiment. And what I found was that I was able to go to very deep meditative states where the music was coming through me. Instead of me composing music, I was decomposing to it. And, that kind of rippled out. So I started playing it for friends and family members and massage therapists and dentists, and a lot of people started using it in many different ways, and that piqued my curiosity to do more research and eventually write a book on it, and at the same time applying a lot of that research into my music. So one influences the other, and that's really how it goes around. You learn something and then you implement and have an experience with it. And it's really the same for listeners. So you have this experience of going inward, breathing in your heart. All of a sudden you feel a connection and something intuitive comes through where you're able to listen to your heart, not just talk to it, but wow, I something was weird with that person and I'm not feeling that like I should be working with them.
Mhm.
Or the other way around. Oh my God, whenever I get together with that person, my energy just feels so charged and expansive. And, this is how our heart talks to us. And that's what these exercises are about, is expanding your emotional intelligence through them as well. So the ability to not just, oh yeah, it's great for relaxing and anxiety, but also taking it to the next step is starting to ask your heart questions, starting to journal and getting the answers. So it amplifies your intuitive self as well, and also amplifies your ability emotionally to detect what's expansive and contracted in your life. So it's great to apply to business and deals that you're going into, and connecting with your heart and seeing if something feels expansive or does it feel contracted. And I go through that a lot, my book as well, because
Mhm.
that's two big questions. Is it expansive or contracted? You can utilize that in every area of your life. And you just go inward and see, does it feel like I'm on a mountain, underneath the night sky? Or does it feel like I'm cold and I need to protect myself? And that becomes our rationale as well for, you know, we can research and everything looks good on paper, but a lot of times there's something tugging at you, telling
Mhm.
you it goes beyond that. And most of us don't listen to that.
Mhm.
And we have to train ourselves to listen to that so we don't make the same mistakes and get into the same challenging relationships and same challenging business relationships, so that we're not like cleaning up our energy in dramatic situations. And we have the ability to respond, which is the derivative of the word responsibility, right? Our
Ah.
ability to respond. So when we're able to do that, we're now managing our energy, because we're not taking a knee jerk reaction to things. We're taking an extra step, going into our hearts and saying, let me just sit with this for a while until I get a yes or a no. And then honor that yes or no as well. So again, it's sound, it's music, but it's not in the traditional way. Listening to a heartbeat or a breath, going inward to really subtle energies to detect that. And it takes working, a little bit and training yourself. It is like another language. And that's why my book's called The Secret Language. It's not so secret really, but to most of us, it is a new way of conversing. And just like anything else, someone speaking Spanish and you don't understand it, right? That's why your clients, when you're saying certain words, it's like speaking another language to them,
Mhm. Yes.
so
Uh, ye I totally get what you're saying because I have loved music my whole life. As a kid, my parents always had music on. They'd be playing records. And by the way, I love in your book that you talk about mixtapes. Oh my gosh, it makes us sound old, but mixtapes are the best.
yeah.
Um, but I grew up listening to my parents playing records, always had music on in the car. it's always been a part of my life in general. And then because I have so many young children, riding in the car is often a traumatic experience. I'll just say it that way. Someone's not happy, someone you're looking out the wrong window, whatever. And I find the one unifying thing is I'll put music on and I'll turn it up really loud. One, I'm drowning them out, to be fair. But the
Right.
other part is it sort of kind of brings everybody into the same space.
Hmm.
So I know that I have been utilizing the power of music in many ways, but never in the ways in which I learned through reading your book or taking the class with you. It goes so much more beyond that. And one part, like I told you in the beginning, I have pages of notes on my desk, but with things highlighted that I wanted to ask you about. But one part that really struck me personally was when you pointed out that lyrics matter. And on one hand, it seems like common sense. Okay, lyrics matter. Sure, there's some songs I would never let my children listen to. But I started to pay more attention to the music I was playing in the car with my kids. And I started to realize a lot of the female singer songwriters we were listening to um, are singing about bad breakups and how the men ruined their lives. And they seem very disempowered. And, there's one song we love, and I think she's saying she's a mess all the time. And I started to think, oh my gosh, these are words I'm putting in my kids' heads, you know, and paying more attention. And then my son, brilliant, points out that, Sia, I'm
Hmm.
sure, um, her lyrics are very empowering, very different lyrics. And so I've really actually been scrutinizing more. So I've learned from you that probably the most of us out there listen to music for various reasons, and we can know and understand that it does shift our emotions. Um, but not like you're teaching in your book. It's still so different.
Yeah, and I mean, there are a lot of positive artists out there, and we have the ability now to search these things so
Mhm.
easily. Type in, songs that are inspirational or songs that bring
Mhm.
gratitude in Google, and you'll come
Yes.
up with tons of them. But also on another note, I mean, I don't think any of us want to hear our kids playing music that we view as negative, but at the same time, that could be a tool as well. That the music that your children are listening to can be a gateway for some great conversations because
Mhm.
it is reflective of what they're feeling in that moment. They're feeling a connection to that music
Mhm.
for some reason. So I always like invite parents, like, yeah, it might not be age applicable for them. Um, and you might not want them to listen to it, and that's fine. That's up to each parent individually. But also take it as a clue that this
Mhm.
might be a conversation that you want to have with them and ask a couple of additional questions. So what is it that you like about this music? You know,
Good point.
is there something in the lyric that you feel connected to now? And get some more information from them because again, we listen to music that we resonate for a reason.
Mhm.
So before you say yes or no, find out why
That's a great
is
point.
is a
Yeah.
bigger question. Yeah.
That's a really great point. That actually also makes me think I was having a conversation with my son's fiance last night, and we were talking about how, well, I was reading the part again about expanding and contracting, your emotions. And you know how sometimes like you're sad and you just want to play a couple sad songs and you want to get the cry out. Do you, in your personal opinion or in your, with all that you do you think there's a time and a place for allowing yourself to sit and kind of be in those feelings? Or because I guess what I was wondering is like, are we always supposed to shift into a positive, or can we embrace when we're having a feeling? What do you
Yeah, no,
think on that?
absolutely. That's a great question. Yeah, and there actually is a study that shows that sad music can enrich your emotional intelligence as well,
Oh,
because it actually brings you into a more introspective state. And
okay.
that could be helpful in situations. So yeah, I think it's a matter of how long,
Time limit.
and yeah, you want to process emotions. And in this day and age, we're taught not to let emotions process, and we're taught more to numb them. But I think, yeah, move with the emotion and get that cry out. But you don't want to listen to the song for 3 days in a row, in
Right.
your bed, right, with a box of Kleenex either. So there's a medium where music can help you and be a bridge, for moving you into a more expansive state. So that's another question that I always ask is, where am I now? Where do I want to go? And what piece of music's going to take me there? So if you're feeling like you're sad and you want to move through some of the emotions, then I think it's great to create a playlist so that way you're limiting yourself to a certain number of songs. So
Okay.
when my mom died, I did a playlist for her to honor her and to also work with me grieving her, because at the time that she passed, I was taking on a lot of responsibilities, and it was a family thing, and kind of being the male of the family in that moment, and kind of being strong for a lot of people. I didn't get a chance to fully process all of the emotions.
Mm.
So I created a playlist of songs that my mom liked,
Aw.
which was Chopin's Nocturne in E flat. There was Tom Jones, What's New Pussycat. There's a Frank Sinatra song. And I just really made a ceremony and ritual out of it to honor her, and at the same time to release some of the emotion behind it. So for me, that actually is one of the definitions that I have of what's healing. And so many people use that word loosely. And when we can define what that means or redefine what it means, I think people understand it a lot more. Because when I started doing this work, I grew up in New York City. I grew up in the Bronx. And when I told my friends, or when they read about me being a sound healer, you know, they thought I was completely out of my mind. Right. So what do you like selling snake oil, man? Like,
Yes.
how can music heal? And, I learned that if I can express it to them in a way that is understandable, then maybe they'll get it. And, my explanation was, well, have you ever heard a song and randomly you start crying or you start feeling an emotion? And by the end of the song, it was it was an experience that helped you move an emotion in some way. So if we start from that premise that there might have been a block where you were holding energy and now you released some of that energy, what is healing? And it's when we have a block. It could be physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. Excuse me. And when you can release a block in some way in any of those four bodies, that's my definition of healing, because you've elevated your state or you've upgraded it in some way, and you have moved through a block on some level or another. And all of them affect each other. So if you're releasing anxiety or you're releasing stress, your body is producing less cortisol,
Mhm.
which is a stress hormone. So your emotional vibration affects your spiritual, and your spiritual affects your physical, and your physical expect they all are constantly interacting together. So when we look at healing, a lot of times most of us think of that in the physical body, and that's where our focus is,
Mhm.
because that's where it usually shows up last. It shows up as pain, and by that time it has elevated or has moved beyond a lot of the mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects. So if you have a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress in your life on a daily basis, and it starts to move towards chronic headache,
Mm.
or chronic fatigue where you can't sleep at night anymore.
Mm.
That's when it starts showing up, when it affects us physically. But if we can curtail it and have tools before it becomes a set pattern or it becomes a habit, so to speak, then we can alleviate some of that physical pain before it occurs.
Do you think that it can be helpful going backwards? By that, I mean, I think my anxiety and my tension has been around since I was a young child. So I
Hmm.
think if we're teaching children these tools now so they don't get to that point,
Right.
what about for people who already are experiencing some severe physical pain or headaches because of years and years of built up stress? Can we undo it through these measures?
Yeah, and not always undoing, but it can be undoing. It really depends on the person and how far along it is and how open they are to working with it. But it can definitely be diminished. And that's
Okay.
some of the work that I do in my courses and also in privates, are working with our energy centers to see
Mm.
if you could bring in enough awareness and give a person enough tools utilizing sound to see where those blocks are living in their physical body. Can they actually feel it and put a finger on where it is? And
Wow.
then working to see where that might have originated from. And a good example of this is a session that I did many years ago. A person came in and had throat issues and was having it showed up as thyroid conditions.
Mm.
And we started to kind of explore some background and some of the energy that might be being held on a subconscious level, on an emotional level that she might not be aware of. So when I asked a couple of questions, one being, when you were younger, did you have any issues in your house in terms of a family member limiting your communication? Does
Mm.
someone say to you, speak and don't, speak when you're spoken to,
Mhm.
or something to that energy? Because it was showing up in her throat area as I'm getting choked up here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I asked her that, she said, no, her family was very open and they listened to her and she always felt like she was being heard. And I said, okay, well, let's just keep working with the energy. And we worked with some sound tools. I was working with tuning forks. And when we came back from the process of using the tuning forks, she was crying. And I said, wow, what's going on? It feels like you're moving some energy. She said, I had a picture in my head while you were working with me of me as a 3-year-old or 4-year-old. And I was screaming at the top of my lungs.
Mm.
And my sister was also screaming at the top of her lungs. So her sister was older than her, and her sister was screaming, and she in turn was following her sister and screaming as well. So the mom, who, not knowing what to do with two screaming girls at 4 and 6 years old, came in with an apple, and she put the apple in my client's mouth
Wow.
to stop the screaming. And she hadn't thought of that or had thought of it at all since it had happened. And she realized that she had had an energetic apple in her mouth whenever she expressed anger or frustration in her life, right? Screaming,
Yeah.
or a lot of emotion, she would feel an energetic block. And over the years, this had happened many times to her. Now, I'm not saying that's why her thyroid condition was there, because it could be a
Sure.
lot of different things that created it. But in that moment, she had an aha moment that
Yeah.
there was definitely an energetic block there. And she, knowing that now that that was one of her issues, was finding healthy ways to express anger. That when those situations then came into her life moving forward, instead of a knee jerk reaction where she was overreacting, which was her normal reaction, or reacting and spending a lot of energy. And a lot of times that moves us into, when we're spending that much energy and it's drama, and it's a knee jerk reaction, we're overreacting. We are elevating the situation as opposed to
Mm.
diminishing it. So the charge, if you think of it like a battery, is so strong because you don't know what it is, that you're just reacting blindly. And that could end up in a fight. It could end up not talking to the person for a certain period of time. It could create other family drama. But when we know what it is and it comes into our field, and you can get like a red flag up that says, oh, this is my issue. When he said that to me, I it wasn't him
Mhm.
that I was reacting to. It was that initial situation. And I don't have to react the same way. You can go inward. And yeah, it's still your stuff. It's still your issue. You still feel it, but you can make a choice and say, I'm not going to spend the same amount of energy that I normally do. And when you do that over a period of time, you could diminish it quite a bit
Wow.
or undo it because you no longer are reacting to it, and you make a new habit every time that comes in. You chant, or every time it comes in, you repeat a mantra: I'm heard, acknowledged, and appreciated.
Mm.
Whatever it is, whatever tool it is, that can be utilized to deprogram that trauma in your life, and you don't have to relive it. It's just really acknowledging it and acknowledging that it's one of your issues. We're all human. We all have our issues. I could give you 18 pages of notes on my issues.
Yes.
We all have them. So,
Well, I'm thank you for answering that. And you did jog my memory. I do remember reading about that retuning
mhm,
old belief systems. And I loved the analogy you gave that write down your issue or your old belief that's not serving you, and then pretend you're a doctor and prescribe a song to fix it. I
right.
love that visual. So well, Barry, I know I've had you for like an hour now, and I know you probably have to get back to your life. I'll I'll save some of my notes. But
How many pages did we get through?
you know what? I didn't even look at them, but I'm thinking maybe one. Look, I'm not joking. I am such a nerd. Such
That's
a
awesome,
nerd.
though. I
Um,
appreciate it.
well, yeah, I mean, I really I wanted you to know that I put that much thought into getting to talk with you today. And I really appreciate, like, sincerely, you taking the time to share this with me. Because I felt so much at that workshop that I didn't even know was possible. I never would have known I could look at music in such a different way. And now I want to shout it from the rooftops. I want to give everyone I love the book. I bought your CDs at the workshop as well. I want to give them as Christmas gifts because I see the potential there to help people, not only in their own lives, but like you were saying, ripple out into the other people around them. You know, that saying, we can't change others, but we can change ourselves.
Mhm.
And so that's why I put so much thought into it. And I said I
That's
basically wrote
great.
a book report.
And it's enabling, the people who are listening to this. A lot of times people ask me like what the starting point is. And if so, a lot of you listening already have music that you love and that could be helpful to you. You're just not organizing it. So it's kind of taking inventory of your music and starting to create playlists. Oh, this would be great to inspire me when I'm down, or this would be great to wind down for sleep. It's slower. So um, I would suggest for people that starting out, just think about music as nourishment. Just like you take 3 times of your day to nourish yourself, just start with nourishing yourself musically 3 times in your day. So
Oh.
a piece of music that you feel would be connecting you, like to gratitude, for example. So I have a series called the Heart Codes that's great for listening and connecting to gratitude because it connects you with your heart. But you could listen to a song by Dido, Thank You, or Louis Armstrong, What a Wonderful World. Pick a song that brings you into being thankful for your day. And then in the middle of your day during lunch, do something that's going to recharge you.
Mm.
So either if you feel like you've experienced a lot of stress and you want to slow down and move to a more relaxed state, there's lots of music that I have on Spotify that's geared towards relaxation. Or you can do what I call a 5-minute vacation, which is listen to a piece of music from another part of the world. So that
Mhm.
just like you put that music on in your car to shift the environment, if you listen to a piece of music like from the Orient or Jamaica and you close your eyes, imagine that you're there, smelling the smells, eating the food, seeing the people. It's great to clear your environment if you've been doing work in the same place all morning. And then at night, think of your evening kind of like dessert. So playing something sweet and nurturing for yourself. Like most of us have kind of taken the sacredness out of sleep. And sleep
Mhm.
should be a ritual that you move into that is recharging your body, giving you the rest, allowing your body to restore itself. So a piece of music at 60 beats per minute would be great. My ambiology series is awesome for that. And play it about an hour before bedtime, um, so that you're bridging your day into your evening and you're not just going to sleep thinking about things you're going to have to do when you wake up.
Yes.
And I like to have a process of also um, acknowledging my day. What were my challenges in the day? What did I learn from them? What am I thankful for in my day? So that you're clearing some of your energy at night and you're starting fresh in the morning. Because if you don't process your thoughts and your activities, then you're waking up in that circle, with the same worries and the same anxiety from the day before. So those 3 times a day, starting off, can be very powerful. And as you know, I'm teaching a lot of workshops now that are giving people these tools as well. So, you can go to my website and see a lot of those. I'll be doing more and more in the new year. I have programs for people who don't necessarily want to put together a playlist. I have pre-existing programs that are there for them as well. And I have a lot of free material that is on YouTube, and if you are on Spotify or Apple Music also.
Well,
So
you beat me to it. I was gonna say, tell everybody where to find you and all your cool stuff. You give a lot away on Facebook too. You
yeah,
have
I'm doing a lot of lives because
Mhm.
I want to create a sound tribe, and that's really what I'm about is, you know, I realized when I did the first Facebook Live after not engaging for a while with people on Facebook that my tribe or my people, or, people who came into that first live, that we all need a place to go that's going to be safe and
Mhm.
sacred. There's a lot of stress and challenges going on in the world, right? So if I can give people an hour where they know whenever they come into a Facebook Live with me for that hour, that it's going to be safe, it's going to be sacred, it's going to be beautiful. They're going to have the ability to come back to themselves for an hour and recharge. Then, then that's what I want to do on a give back. And people who want to continue with me beyond those have the opportunity to do that. But that being a constant where they know that there's always going to be a place for them to do that. So
I love that. The generosity, I mean, obviously I feel you were very generous to come on here and be with me. Take time out of your day to spend some time with me was very generous. But yes, what
no,
you
it's
give
awesome.
what you give on YouTube and Facebook is awesome. I recommend everybody check that out. And then before I let you go, you did mention that you do private sessions. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I'm going to be starting out offering those in January, and they're really geared towards people who need to fine tune their
Mhm.
energy and want to tweak things a bit. So people who have done some work on their own, who might have experienced some profound experiences with sound, but they have a mission to share in the world, and they are looking to launch something into the world, something creative. So it's not just healing sessions, but it's a package that gears around a number of healing sessions, also utilizing my music and using that to engage their audience, how music can magnify their mission,
Wow.
as well, and also utilizing how to do that in on the business sense too with their audiences. So it's really for people who are looking to bring their gift to the world in a message of some kind, whether it's a book or a CD, but they have a vision and a mission that they're looking to share, and they want to fine tune and tweak that. And music has a way and sound, and me working with you individually to jog sometimes things that you don't know you're holding back subconsciously.
That sounds
And it takes
exciting.
someone else to be there with you sometimes to kind of jog things loose a little bit.
Yeah. Wow. And people can find that on your website, Barry Goldstein Music, correct?
BarryGoldsteinMusic.com, and also we'll be probably launching that in January. So it's the Sound of Transformation is going to have a lot of the courses that I'm doing, and some of those offers on the private packages.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again, Barry, so, so much. I really appreciate your time and